Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Michael Cudlitz.
Hey guys. Every TV show ever known.
Well, that's actually what I wanted to start with, if you don't mind.
The what?
I have a theory that you are the most watched actor in television history.
I don't know about that.
Just going through here, 21 Jump Street, LA Law, Beverly Hills 90210, ER, Home Improvement, CSI, 24, Nip Tuck, Band of Brothers, Lost, Nip Tuck, and a little show called The Walking Dead.
Wow.
Between that, over 1 billion people have watched you.
Really?
You look like you're looking for a check there now somewhere.
No, I'm just wondering where how 1 billion people would see me. I don't know. How you guys doing today? Everybody happy to be finally out. You guys just lifted your mandates last Monday, right? Oh, doesn't it feel great? We were not much before you, but it's nice to see your faces.
I'm very unattractive, so I was kind of enjoying the masks. Your start off wasn't actually in acting. You were doing construction work on movie sets. Is that correct? In American History X being one of them.
I was always doing acting. I always wanted to do acting as a career, but I grew up in New Jersey, in the States, and very blue collar. Was sort of go get a job. You know, it was like I was going to go to work. Like it was doing a construction job, probably, or something, working with my dad. And I always acted and did that sort of on the side, and I loved doing it, but I never thought I could have a career doing it. So I was doing construction, and I used construction to pay my way through school, and I wound up going to art school for acting and paid my way through school doing that, doing construction for film and television. And right when I got out of school, I entered the film and television professional world. I was doing it, working union, and working on Beverly Hills 90210, actually doing construction, and then wound up acting on the show after they found out that I was an actor. So it's always been hand in hand, but I haven't had a full-time construction job since about a year or two after Band of Brothers. So that was 22 years ago.
You said there Beverly Hills 90210. You then went from one of the first roles after that was Walker, Texas Ranger.
I was not in Walker.
No?
This is crazy. I'm credited as doing Walker, Texas Ranger on IMDb. I never did it. I've written to them. I've told them to take it out. They don't believe me. There's a thing you can do in the film and television industry when you want it, like we do favors every once in a while. We do stuff uncredited. Apparently, there's an episode where there's this guy who looks just like me, and they swear it's me, and they won't take the credit off. You probably did it under it because you did it for a buddy, or a friend of yours directed the episode or something, because we do that all the time, and it's not, and they won't take it off. I have not done Walker, Texas Ranger, the original, the second one, the next one. I've done none of them.
Okay, that's my researcher for it.
No, it's not. No, it's listed. It's listed. They won't take it off, so everybody sees it and they're like, "Oh, you're a Walker." I'm like, "No, I wasn't. I really wasn't."
A film you are in that you're definitely in, because I've seen it. It's one of my all-time favorite films, and one of my all-time favorite scenes is Gross Point Blank.
I love you, man.
Just
I love
it's
you
something
too,
I
Bob.
use at least once a week. It's like for a while, for a while.
For a while.
How did that come about, and how was that experience working on the film?
There was a lot of improv done on that set with John and the crew. The original scene we threw out, and we were playing with a couple of different scenarios of this sort of the bully in high school and what was really going on with the bully in high school. Obviously, the bully is picking on everybody else, so he's got something going on at home, or he has some kind of deep-seated thing that is bothering him. And we went through one of the scenarios was that actually I was always in love with him, and I was going to profess my love to him in the hallway, or beat his ass. It could have gone either way. And the other, what we wound up landing on was the poem, and John and I wrote the poem, John Cusack. And up to that point, not as if it changed, up till then, John was my favorite actor, and I had not met him. And I don't know why I say up till then, but up till then I hadn't met him. And John was always sort of like an actor that I admired and wanted to sort of have my career go, sort of similar to his. And then I finally got to meet him and work with him, and just had an amazing experience with him. And we wrote that scene together. There was no, the scene that was written in the script initially got thrown out, and we wrote that together. And it's to date, one of my favorite experiences on set, because it was so collaborative with him, and he was just so wonderful. And I met him years later at a comic convention, actually about 4 years ago, and I knew he was at the convention, and I was like, I'm going to go see John and see if he even remembers me, because that was the first time I met him, and it was the last time I saw him. And then I remember walking over to where his table was, and he literally like ran around the table and came out and gave me a huge hug, and he's like, "Oh my God, I'm a huge Walking Dead fan." I was like, "What is happening?" So, John is a very talented and very giving person. So.
The other thing you got to do was, for my money, the greatest miniseries ever made, Band of Brothers.
Yeah.
What's that? Like this, you've done obviously with Walking Dead. You've had this was kind of your prep for that in relation to the huge fan. But working on something that's like Steven Spielberg. This is like prestige television. Mm-hmm. What was that in the moment like? Because that was just one of those things that was absolutely everywhere. Like Band of Brothers, I think most people will have seen the show. When you're in that kind of the bubble of it, what is that experience like?
Well, when you're in the middle of it, you don't sort of realize what it is. Look, to be perfect, and I've said this many times, to be perfectly honest, when we all first signed up for Band of Brothers or knew we had the opportunity to be part of it, it didn't have anything to do with the men. We didn't know the project. All we really knew was it was a Steven Spielberg, Tom Hanks miniseries. And we were like, oh, this is great. They're going to do this. They've done, Private Ryan, Steven Spielberg. Like, this could be a career changer. It's going to be done so well. It was all about other elements of the project that we were excited about initially. And then we all started getting into the work and meeting the men, actually reading all the material, because initially when they're casting things like this, you don't really know what it is. They give you just the material. They tell you it's this project about World War II. So we didn't really know what we were signing up for. Once we were in it and we knew what it was, we started realizing how important this project was, and starting to meet the men and their families and have conversations with them. And then it becomes, again, about the work and representing these, heroes as best we can. And sort of within that, you start to realize that it's not just about them. It's about every single soldier that ever served with any single company, because it's the experience is universal from what we learned, and can sort of interchangeable so far as the men relying on each other in those situations. We spent a year basically in England, in London proper, and in Hatfield, which is an aerodrome facility about an hour and 10 minutes northeast of London, which I guess is now is a bunch of houses there. But it used to be just as far as you could look. It was just open sheep fields and landing strips, and they shot a bunch of Private Ryan there as well. It was a life-changing experience.
Did you meet the real?
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I got to meet, we call them our guys. I met my guy and his family, and got to spend about 4 years with him until he passed.
That must be heavy, like meeting him, meeting the family, and seeing all that.
Yeah.
Like, how much of that were you conscious of making this? Like, it's not just a show for Steven Spielberg. This is like got a family and a whole person's legacy I'm responsible for.
Yeah, it's terrifying. Pretty much, it's terrifying. You start to realize the weight of it once you meet them, and you start talking to them, and then talk to the other guys, and you learn more about your guy talking to his buddies or his wife than you do talking to your guy, because he won't tell you what he did. You know, everybody else will tell you what he did. He won't tell you what he did.
It's that thing is like if you talked about the Warriors at once, well then you know he wasn't lying.
Yeah.
Speaking of terrifying, you then joined the cast of The Walking Dead, the biggest TV show on the planet. Is there any, not apprehension on your part, but kind of, oh, what am I walking into? Because that fan base, and I assume there's a few Walking Dead fans here today, are quite mad, for want of a better word.
Oh,
Were
yeah.
you kind of conscious of, I'm going to be asked Walking Dead questions for the rest of my life before I take this?
No, that was another one that, again, when they came to me, they wouldn't tell me what it was because everything's so secretive. And I just come off of doing a cop show in Los Angeles called Southland, and I was able to be home for a while. So they called me up and they're like, "Hey, we got the show out in Georgia. We want you to come do it, and we can't tell you what it is." And and at the time it was like, and the money wasn't really that good, and it was in another state, and I had to, relocate for 8 months out of the year, and move away from home, and I was like, I don't know what is it. Like, well, we can't tell you. And they're like, well, yeah, I'm not doing it, and they're like, no, but you have to. Like, it ain't happening. So we went back and forth quite a lot before they finally told me what it was. And I knew the show was big, and I had some friends who were working on it, and so I knew the show was good, but it was still not close to home. It was on a complete different coast. But eventually they let us know what it was, and we came to an agreement, and we went out and did it. But that was a hard one too, because again, as you said, the fan bases. I went online to go see kind of what it was, and you guys are brutal, like brutal. So it could go either way. If they love you, they fully embrace you. If they do not care for you, they let you know that too.
Speaking of the fan base, we should have one option. Just walk up to the microphone there and we'll give you a shout. Especially because I think my next question could bring it grinding to a halt. Uh-oh. He's got hot coffee that he'll potentially throw at me now as well, so I'll wait till he puts that down. The end.
Couches are really slippery. So I probably look like I'm trying not to fall. It's because I am.
The ultimately, spoiler, the demise of Abraham. I was really disappointed because I thought having Glenn go at the same time as well, again, you were my favourite character in it, and I thought it felt like it took away from what you've done in your story, the fact that they've done two. Now, I know it was a huge, shocking scene, but I thought we really could have stayed with just the aftermath of what happened to you rather than, go.
They'll write about it like it's news. It's just too much for the fan base, and one does take away from the other, and I think that they could have, personally, I think they could have spread it out, and it would have had more impact.
And it was something that with Southland, I absolutely love Southland as well. And the demise of that character, 2 times I've watched the show.
John didn't die. John was shot. Was My favorite day on set was the day that I wasn't on Walker, Texas Ranger.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. What was it like working with all the walkers? Like, it must be kind of weird having just a grown-in guy coming up to you with like a window.
It, not really. You get used to it, you know. At first, you're kind of like, ugh. But you spend 12 hours a day with these guys. And there's some that do multiple walkers, so they're around a lot. They're fantastic at it. So you have your regulars, meaning ones we see often. So you get to know them as people. So it's like just people showing up to work. You know,
Thank
they
you.
have the hardest job on set too, because the conditions, the heat in Georgia, and to be in all that latex, and it's just nasty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Wrong show.
Wrong show.
Oh my God. Oh dear.
Hello. Yeah, I first I found out about you in Southland, which I thought you were epic in. There were some real intense scenes in that show, and I just thought it was so superbly acted. Could you talk a little bit about that? And is there any chance that it's ever going to get rounded off? Because I didn't feel it had a real ending.
We talk a lot about. I'm in touch with. For those who don't know, Southland. Southland is almost like a docudrama. It's like a documentary style cop show. It's sort of in the vein of Cops. If they had Cops in Ireland, right? The American TV
Yeah,
show
they did.
Cops. They probably have an Irish version or a UK version of it, honestly, because they did them all over the world. But it's sort of a show that's shot like that. It's very immediate, very documentary style, but it is actually scripted. And we had a great time doing that. Myself, Regina King, Ben McKenzie, and Sean Hattasey. We did that show for, it's called 5 seasons, but it was really 4 years. And it was possibly the most creative experience I've ever had. We would rarely rehearse stuff. You would sort of learn your dialogue, and we would come out and we would do it. We would have sort of police action happening, people being arrested on the streets of Los Angeles in real time. People walking by didn't necessarily know what we were doing, so they were acting in real time to what we were doing. So the show was a little bit dangerous when we were shooting it as well. But all the training we had, we went through the academy, a little part of the academy, and a little part meaning it was a condensed version, but it was just for 6 or 8 of us, so they were able to condense everything. And all our training and all our advisors were current serving or retired Los Angeles Police Department men and women. And the show was based on real stories from these guys, and it was insane, the amount of crap that they deal with. And it changed my perspective on what I think of policing, especially in the States, because of the amount of abuse that these officers take. Now, yes, they're trained to take that abuse, and we have to hold our officers to a very high standard. But you also see, experiencing a show like that from the side that we did, you see how quickly it can all fall apart. Again, it's not excusing bad behavior from anyone. If you're a bad cop, no one hates a bad cop more than the rest of the officers doing that job. And they should pay, be responsible for everything that they do. But you do see how that can happen and how it can unspool and how quickly. So it was a very, very intense show to do. We had a lot of fun on that show, though, too. A lot of fun. We're talking about, how they do sort of Sherlock? They've done some, like, 1 and 2 episode seasons, series where they come and they do just like an hour and a half or 2 1-hour-and-a-halves. We might do something like that. Yeah, we're hoping to. Everybody's available for it, and is willing to do it. So we'll see.
I love the clip from that went viral last year with it's like how to deal with a Karen, and it's you in the ice cream parlor.
Yeah, there's one going around now, the where I yell at the kid, a lot of yelling in that show, where I yell at the kid, he's like, you know who my father is? And I'm like, wow, your mother didn't tell you? And then they cut to, what's his name, the comedian, he's like, emotional damage. So it's very,
I love the one in the ice cream parlor.
sad
The woman,
and funny.
she's like, "I pay your salary." He's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, you do. Do you want a lick?"
Yeah.
Next up, little adorable question asker.
What would The Walking Dead be like if you didn't die?
Amazing. Thank you.
She doesn't watch The Walking Dead, does she?
I don't know.
Security.
I don't think she was around when I was around.
That's a bit of a traumatic scene for her to see. Brilliant. An actor you said John Hughes like was one of your favorite. One of my personal favorites is Robert Redford and Brad Pitt, who you got to work with as well. And Robert Redford in particular, especially around actors, has this mystique. He's like there's Al Pacino, then De Niro's like, oh, but you're a real fan. You're a Robert Redford guy. Were you a fan? Obviously, of Robert Redford going into that, and what was that
I
like?
don't. Who's not a fan of Robert Redford? Her. Yeah, that was the first film I ever did. I auditioned for River Runs Through It, and the audition went really well. And I didn't hear from them for 3.5 months. And then I heard, okay, you're flying out tomorrow to Montana. And I was like, what are you talking, why? They're like, oh, they want you in that movie. I was like, what movie? And so I literally had forgotten that I auditioned for it. I'd forgotten that it existed. They forgot to let me know that I was on hold. Everybody forgot, but they were like, nope, you're going to do it. But apparently, Mr. Redford loved my audition, and then they spent the next 3 months, like not every minute of the next 3 months, but the next 3 months they were looking to cast that role locally because they didn't have the money to pay somebody to bring them in from another state. And I guess the casting director reminded him that it was the first job I'd ever had, so that I probably wouldn't be that expensive if they really wanted me. So they did that. They flew me up, and I was in Montana for 2 weeks, went home, took my wife back out, and we spent another 6 weeks out in Montana, and it was amazing. And it's my first film experience. And Mr. Redford was just amazing.
Well, you starstruck me because even now
Oh,
you're
yeah.
speaking, you're saying like Mr. Redford, like the respect
Yeah.
you have from like, would you get that like, oh, Christ, it's Robert Redford?
Yeah, I was driving. I remember driving in a van one morning. We were going to work, and in Montana, everything took it was like a 2-hour drive to set, no matter where you were going, because it was just in the middle of nowhere. And I was sitting there in the van one morning. He would read his newspaper, driving in, and I was just sitting there staring at him. I think he felt me staring at him, and I didn't realize I was staring at him. But he goes, "What? What's going on?" I go, "Huh?" He goes, "What are you thinking?" I said, I'm just became very aware of myself sitting in a van, driving to set with Robert Redford sitting in front of me, who was about to direct me in my first film. I said, my mom would lose her mind right now. And he just thought that was adorable. There's something about Robert Redford when you meet him. He is a movie star. Like, I can't even explain it. You look at him and you're like, oh, of course. But he looks right at you. He gives you 100% of his time, 100% of his energy in that moment. And then he moves on. He's sort of like, hi, how are you? Very nice to meet you. And every fan he was amazing with. And they all felt satisfied, and they all felt like they had some time with him, even though it was like, 2 seconds, because he gave you that 2 seconds, like, completely. And honestly, I learned a lot from him when he was interacting with fans, and I was sort of like, if I ever get to that place where I have fans or I have anyone who wants any of my time or wants to come say hello, even if you don't have time to really spend with the people who put you where you are, give them as much as you can, 100% while you can. And to me, that's invaluable.
And it sounds like such a silly thing. So I've been talking to people who've been going to the desk and stuff downstairs, and they said he asks your name. What you do, ask the name. He said, and you're engaged. And how important is that to you, like to give that back to people, like that, let them have their moment?
Like, if I'm not here to meet you guys, why am I here? You know what I mean? It would be horrible, and I've seen it done, and it is horrible if you guys were coming up to me and I didn't care. When I stop caring about meeting you guys, I won't be at these things. I might not also be at these things sometimes because I can't schedule it, but he didn't show up. He doesn't care anymore. But no, it's, and I've seen it, and you've all, if you go to Comic Cons a lot, or if you have friends who go to these fan events, there are actors who don't do this well. They shouldn't be doing it.
Question there with the Quicksilver, I believe.
Jack Frost, but close enough. So, firstly, my mom and sister absolutely adore you,
I
and
get that a lot.
yeah,
Dude,
and they
my mom
wanted me
loves
to
you.
tell
I'm
you
like,
that. And my question is, what was your favorite scene to film in The Walking Dead?
Probably when I say goodbye to Eugene outside the motorhome. It's still, I used to say it was, and it still is. I say it that way because you forget things and you remember things and you remember different moments. That's still my favorite. Although I had some stuff when I worked with Josh again on this last week's episode, some wonderful times on set with him as well. So as a director now, I have different experiences that are wonderful. But my favorite as an actor would be the scene with Josh saying goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that strange going from being an actor on the show to directing the cast? Is there any kind of, not pushback because they're all professionals there, but there's
no,
any
there's
weirdness?
no pushback at all. No, they're happy. We, as actors, we are in situations, we have so many amazing directors that come through, but we also have directors who come through who don't know the show. And you're having to do your work, but you're also having to educate them as to the work of the show. And it's part of it, so when we are doing work as actors with directors who really know the show, the level of the storytelling just gets, risen. It just rises. And they love when I'm there. I love them, and they love when I'm there. And I say that because they told me, so I'm not like, oh, they love me. No, I've been told many times that they really enjoy when I'm there, and there's no pushback at all. Plus, I get to tell everybody what to do. It's perfect.
Yeah, we're going to be killing Negan repeatedly today.
Today, Jeffrey, guess what you're doing? You're going to crawl on your belly, and then you're going to stand right before the scene. Why am I crawling on my belly? Shut up.
Okay, take 112. I think we're going to get it this time. Question there?
Yeah, my friend didn't know he died, and now he does.
What did he say?
Anyway,
What did he say?
He said his friend didn't know you died in Walking Dead.
Well, it's not even a spoiler at this point. At this point, he's just not a good friend.
and my question is, if have you read the comics, and if you have, do you think that the show does them justice?
I have read the comics. I haven't read all of the comics. I do think it does I think the show does the comics justice, but it's very different I think it definitely, the spirit of the comic has always been there. The world that Kirkman has created has always been there. The idea that, this created family that we have, and we all experience this during the holidays. We have our blood family, and then we have our chosen family. And sometimes our chosen family just gets it. These guys don't. They've had it with me. They're like, all right, they attacked my family, we're out. Yeah, but I think the spirit of the comic is absolutely, there. And there's things that were done differently from, since early on that affected how the stories were told. But yeah, I do.
Thank you.
Tell your friend to catch up.
Hi, Michael. I wanted to know, really, given your relationship to the show as a performer, as an actor, and now as a director, and the expanding universe of the show as well, what was your preference? Did you have a better time as a performer in the show, or, cutting your
Just
creative juices?
Very, very different. Like completely apples and oranges. Both wonderfully creatively satisfying, but very, very different experiences. And the more I direct now, I've done my 6th hour, 4 on the original and 2 on the World Beyond. And after my 6th hour, I love it even more, directing. So that's what I'm coming more into, whereas the acting is something that I'm much more secure in. I still feel like, even with acting, when I start a new job, it's always first day of school. That's what I always describe it as, because it's literally like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. Everybody's going to know. It's literally, I'm 30 years into my acting career, and I know what I'm doing so far as the job, but every specific new job is something different where I don't know what I'm doing, and I am figuring it out for the first time, and I am hopefully learning every day and doing both, because to me that's the most exciting thing, is coming in, taking what I know, seeing what's happening, apply it, and then experience something new and learn from that so that I can apply that later.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Which character would you kill on The Walking Dead?
Would I kill?
Yeah.
No. Everyone's like, Negan. No, I don't think. I'd have him, shut up. Like, he talks too much. But he talks too much in the graphic novel, too. Who would I kill? I don't know. I would have a hard time. See, I fall in love with the characters, so I'd have a hard time killing any of them, even the ones that annoy me. I don't know. It's a good question. Probably Baby Judith, because it would just piss everybody off.
Thank you.
Have you ever had a really weird fun experience?
In life,
Yeah.
a really weird, fun experience.
Fan experience.
Oh, fan. I thought you had fun experience. I was like, well, I hope so. No. No, and I say no like that because I know the guys that have had some weird shit happen. And mine's not weird at all. I've had wonderful experiences, and I've had, awkward experiences where people are very overwhelmed, but I don't think anything's weird. Maybe I just have a really high bar for weird, too. I could add some stuff that you would think was really weird, and I'm like, not so weird. She's like, he's weird. Like,
She saw that as a challenge.
exactly. She's like, he's weird. Don't make me do that again.
Given the fact that Rick's group killed everyone in Negan's group, do you think it was justified that he killed only 2 people in Rick's group?
That whole thing, I think we got off easy.
Yeah.
We just murdered a bunch of people in the satellite building, like just straight up murdered them. We only lost 2 people. Yeah, I would have killed a lot more if I was him.
Thank you.
Hey, Michael. When you were filming your last scene, were you nervous at all, like filming that last scene where Negan killed you?
Was I nervous the last week?
Like when it was coming up to your.
No, it becomes. We were talking about this earlier with someone at my table, and it becomes so technical for us while we're doing this. When we watch it, it's a scene that obviously the episode's 42 minutes, but the actual beating, is once it starts is only, well, in this case, not only, it actually went on for quite a while, but it's still only, within the scope of a couple of minutes, everything happens. We shoot that over 2 days. So the intensity of the scene is put into it when it's edited together and within the moments that we do. But the actual time that we're shooting it, there's a lot of time in between. There's a lot of camera setups. Every time that there's a hit of the bat and there shows more damage, that's a makeup change. So we'd shoot the first hit and do a couple of versions of the first hit, and then I would go change, and they'd change the prosthetic to a more damaged one, and the cameras would swing over here, and they would shoot Steven's coverage and do his first hits. And then I would come back from the makeup trailer 45 minutes later, come back, they'd swing back and do the second hit. It's a very technical process, so a lot of the emotion of the process is removed. But when we're in the middle of it, it is very, very intense. But it's a different intensity because it's the immediacy of it is really what you guys experience. For us, it's not immediate. It's 2 nights worth of work, 2 14-hour nights worth of work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Were you surprised when you got the script for that? Because in the books, if memory serves me right, you're not killed by Negan, it's killed by his number 2, I think, with an arrow. So
Yeah.
were you kind of thinking when you saw, all right, I'm safe here, and then read that and went, what the?
No, I was supposed to be dead many episodes before. Denise took my death. I knew I was on borrowed time right when I walked out the gates with Eugene to look for the munitions factory. But even before that, Stephen and I were told in the August of the year prior that we were leaving, and they didn't know if we were going to die at the end of season 6 or the beginning of 7, or if we were going to split it up, or if we were going to go together. They were debating that for a very long time, how they wanted to do it. But we knew in the August that we were going to pass at the end of that season, which we finished filming in October. And then we came back in May for season 7, and you guys didn't see it until the following October. So we knew a year and a half before you guys saw it.
What's that moment like? Because obviously you've come back, you've directed, it sounds like you really got on with everyone. There's like this little family community. There's that famous video of Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul reading the last episode of Breaking Bad, and they're breaking down crying. Mm-hmm. What is that like for you? You read that and go, oh, like the little family I built here in Atlanta, I'm not going to be part of anymore. I was fine. Yeah, I think it was probably a bigger deal for Steven because he had been there since the beginning. I was always someone who came in, and when I came in, I knew that I was only going to be there for a few years. So I knew that right when I took the job. And so for me, it wasn't, not that it wasn't a big deal to me, but it wasn't a big deal. It was like, it was the deal. For Steven, I think it was a bigger deal because he didn't know, and I think, when he first started, he's on, so you never know when you're going to go. But he had a sense, in the comics, he goes in the 100th edition, and we were coming up to that with the introduction of Negan, and he knows that he's taken out.
this entire thing that we're pushing now. He was part of the original, the original guys.
So you were a blow-in, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, it was just I knew I was only going to do a few years, and so then when I found out, it's like, okay, well, we'll start looking for something else.
Just time for a couple more there.
How you doing, brother? Hope you're enjoying Ireland so far.
So far, this is my Ireland. I got in last night, I walked in the rain, which was fantastic, and I've seen your convention center. It's lovely.
Oh, brilliant. I recently seen online, I don't know if there's any truth to it, but it might be a Maggie and Negan spin-off. If that is true, would you be involved anyway behind the camera?
Hopefully. It's 100% true because AMC announced it.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, it's not, there's no spoiler there, I don't think. Yeah, no, AMC announced that it was coming out, and hopefully I will. I get along really well with both of them, and I know that Jeffrey has requested me to direct more, even on this season, but everything's been full, so I've done all I'm going to do on this final season. But I know that he's been very vocal about wanting me around, so we'll see if it works out. That typically, right now, the directing stuff becomes a scheduling issue with me more than anything. They are very happy with me and they want me around, and it's just a matter of figuring out where it works.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Hello. Who's your favorite character in The Walking Dead?
My favorite characters have always been, I always say this and then it always changes, but they've always been Glenn and Carol. But when I used to say that, it was because they'd been through so much, their arcs had been so amazing, and now we're so deep into it, we have a lot of characters who've been through quite a bit. But I'm still going to say Glenn and Carol.
Okay, thank you.
I'm the friend who hasn't caught up, by the way.
I realized that. I saw you down there, and you were like nodding, and I went, I wonder if she's the friend.
Yeah, I didn't know you died, but I know now. But it's
Sorry
really
about
hard
that.
to avoid spoilers.
Maybe I won't, though. Maybe we're fibbing. Maybe you set this up and you're being punked.
It's the big inside joke.
Maybe I'm still on the show. Maybe I'm the only one that lives. No.
Like, how was it? Because I assume choreographing killing walkers, like, I don't think you just went up to a guy and just bashed him on the head and he pretended to die. So was there like a whole process between trying to like arrange where where the walkers are and where you go to and just kill them?
Yeah, think of it as a dance. It's all choreographed. Not the little bits of it, but all the broad strokes of it. And then because the only way to kill a walker is to take it out through the head, it's all meticulously done once we get into the actual kills. Monty Simmons, our stunt coordinator, and his team are fantastic. Now, a lot of the stuff is done digitally, which strangely enough makes it harder because we'll have different sets of knives. We'll have a real knife, we'll have a rubber knife, and then we'll have a knife that just has a hilt on it with a little stub with blue or yellow or green tape on the end of it. So the kills, when they go in, you're using the real knife when you're carrying it most of the time. When you pull it out, when you go for the kill, but right when you are in your backswing, typically the knife will be dropped and a fake knife will be put in your hand, and then you come in and do it. So that stuff gets very technical at times, and it becomes harder because you are dealing with the head, and you can't really have contact. When you're doing a choreographed fight and you're punching, you're never really hitting. You're doing misses that are staged. They look proper with the camera. When you're doing body hits, you're hitting, but you're pulling the punch, meaning you're not following through all the way. When you're working with the head and the face, and then you're dealing with a walker that has a prosthetic on and lenses, and they can't really see. the attention to detail on that is very, very high, and safety is the biggest concern. Those sequences take the longest time because of making sure everybody's safe.
Thank you.
You sound like you're doing prep work for the zombie apocalypse, so I'm going to try and join your team when this all kicks off. You mentioned before Robert Redford, John Hughes, these prestigious, amazing actors you've worked.
I haven't met one yet that's a jerk. Seamus and I, there was an online. Oh man, which came first? You know, the Abraham or the Seamus? And so I looked up the dates of when the comic was done and when the Seamus character was introduced in WWE and WWE, yeah.
They got the F out.
Yeah, and Abraham was first, and I sent out a tweet, and I was like, stole your look. I said, check your dates. And about 3 weeks later, I get this email from the WWE people, and they're like, Seamus wants to meet you. And so we like did this whole thing where basically it was showing the fans that we didn't hate each other. It was very silly, but it was really fun because I got to go to Raw in Atlanta and spend a night with the wrestlers, and it was cool. And they're all great guys. Seriously, they're just a lot of fun. They're huge. They're just like huge human specimens. Very bizarre.
You got to work with the biggest of the human specimens, The Rock, on Ballers.
I did. Had a great time with him too. Another person, just lovely. Like just really kind, giving, incredibly talented, and he was awesome to me.
He's someone who just seems to have that aura of being like incredibly nice.
Well, he's like a
professional the whole
Robert
time.
Redford. That's like the kind of like you see. You're like, oh, okay, I get it. You're a star. Like I get it.
I was kind of hoping you said he stops Instagram and goes kicking puppies or something instead, but no,
No,
he's nice
like
off.
he's like Tom Hanks. Everyone's like, so you met Tom Hanks? Is he really as nice as as he seems? And you're like, no, he's nicer. Yeah, he's nicer. Same thing with Dwayne. He's a very humble, kind person.
Just time for one more question, then I'm going to release you back to
Sure.
the wild.
Hi.
It's the last one, so it has to be brilliant.
Okay. I don't know if it's brilliant, but I wanted to ask, like, I don't know if it's because I watched the show too young or what, but often I'll be, like, in a shopping center or hiking or whatever, and I'll find myself mentally planning, like, if there was a zombie apocalypse, what would I do right now? So I wanted to know, like, does that happen to you as well? Like, do you have a specific plan?
I feel like we've addressed this question. No, but having done the cop show I did, I find I'm more aware of what's going on around me than because of Walking Dead. I sit in different places where I sit in restaurants. I won't have my back to the door. So cops and criminals basically have the same MO. Like if you're in the mob, you don't put your back to the door. And if you're a cop, you don't put your back to the door. So if you're in a zombie apocalypse, you wouldn't put your back to the door. So I find that gave me more of a sense of changing how I operate than Walking Dead. But it's weird when you start to really become. And I don't know if we have any law enforcement out here or anyone military, anything. You get and if you're not, and you know someone who is, ask them afterwards, and they'll tell you if I'm full of crap, but I'm not. Once you learn what to look for in human behavior, it's very annoying because you can't stop, and you realize that's abnormal behavior. And I'm not talking about people who are just like flying the freak flag and being themselves, like whatever. There's sort of deviant social behavior that you become aware of, and once you're aware of it, you're aware of it for life. And you're like, huh, that guy's a criminal. Yep. And again, when you're aware of it, you're usually 100% right. So don't be aware.
Okay. Thank you.
Just scanning the audience for criminals now.
Don't be aware.
Unfortunately, that's all we've got time. Michael, I had an absolute blast being here. Thank you so much for
Awesome.
your time. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Cudlitz.
Thanks, guys.